Hello, it's Ben Adam Smith from houseplanninghelp.com, and you're listening to the Empowered Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Ellery Wells, and this is the podcast created to help you develop, help you grow, and to help you overcome the challenges that you are facing in your life. I'm so excited that you're here with me today. In today's episode, we're going to talk with Erik Fisher, who wrote Beyond the To-Do List. Now, Erik and I were actually live at New Media Expo. I'll get into a little bit more detail when we start the recording, but it was one of the coolest experiences that I've had in several months, just to be able to sit across the table from someone and see their facial expressions and how they react to the questions. And there was so much energy there at the podcast pavilion. Again, it was at New Media Expo at the beginning of January. Before we go into the interview, I wanted to mention one thing that I'm opening up to listeners and readers of the Empowering the 80% blog. I've got a few spots available for coaching, and in these coaching sessions, you and I, one-on-one, will be going through the obstacles that you're facing specifically in your life and how you can get through them, over them, around them, and get to the life that you really want to live and the life that you should be living. If that sounds like something that you would be interested in, I've got a short link for you. Just head over to empoweringthe80%.com/coach. Fill out the information. You and I will get on the phone for just a few minutes and see exactly what you're facing and if that's something that I would be able to help you with. I'm not sure how many spots I'll have available, but don't wait. Go over to empoweringthe80%.com/coach and it'll take you right there. And I'd love to help you get to where you want to be in your life. My new and noteworthy period on iTunes ended, and we just crossed the 1,100 downloads, and I'm pretty excited. Got some awesome response and great connections with listeners just like you. And before I go too much further, I want to read some iTunes reviews. One is from Deacon Bradley. It's a 4-star review. Deacon, I want to figure out how we can make this a 5-star review next time and what I need to do better. Deacon Bradley says, loving the guest on this show so far. Looking forward to more great episodes. Deacon, I agree with you. I'm looking forward to more episodes, and I know I've got some really awesome guests, including Erik, coming up. The other review that I wanted to share from you is from Nick Lauper, who says, feeling empowered. Ellery has got a great show going and has already landed some big name guests. Each episode gets me feeling empowered and looking forward to hearing more. Thank you, Nick. I agree, some awesome guests and some even more awesome, if that's even possible, more awesome guests coming up that I'm really excited to share their story with you. So thank you, Nick. Thank you, Deacon. If you would like to leave a rating or review in iTunes, you can go to empoweringthe80%.com/iTunes and it will take you right there, or you can go to Empowered Podcasts and all of the links are right there on that landing page. Without further delay, we'll go right into the interview with the man himself, Erik Fisher. Thank you for tuning into the Empowered Podcast. Today's guest is social media expert, host of the Beyond the To-Do List podcast, and the would-be mayor of Baconville, Erik Fisher. How are you doing, Erik?
I'm doing well. Having a great time here at New Media Expo.
Yeah, for everybody that's listening, we are actually doing a live show. Erik and I are sitting at the same table with New Media Expo equipment and here from Las Vegas. And I got to meet Erik in person and really excited to share his story with you. So, Erik, let's go right into, I was listening to Jamie Tardy's session yesterday, and they want you to come out with a bang. So my very first question is, what is the biggest killer of productivity?
Lack of focus.
Lack of focus. How do you get focused or destroy your lack of focus?
Well, honestly, it's having something that you've decided you're going to shoot for, and whether or not you actually get there is one thing. Like my last episode, I talked with Michael Hyatt all about his new Best Year Ever course about setting goals. And in that, we talk about that you have to set goals, and people need to go listen to that episode. But it comes down
to episode 52,
53, beyondthetodolist.com/53.
Okay,
and it comes down to that. So, for example, Michael gave me this example. He says, last year I made 9 goals for 2013. I met 5 of them. So Michael Hyatt's a failure, right? No. What he did was, by having any goals, he did 5 more things than the 0 he would have done had he not made any goals. And so, moving backwards from those goals, the reason we don't, a lot of times the reason we don't meet our goals is because we then don't focus on them.
Well, I have heard a few times over the last couple weeks, not necessarily here at NMX, but people that say don't focus on the goal, focus on the action. Is that the same two sides of the same coin?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, but you can't focus on what the actions are or choosing the right actions and then doing them till you have that goal. So it's like, hey, let's go on a road trip. Okay, jump in the car. Where are you going? If you don't have, like, I guess you could wander around aimlessly, and honestly, that would be kind of fun, depending upon who you're with.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a destination in mind, at least, to then go like, you have to still pick a direction.
Okay.
You can't just get in the car and push the gas and just go ram into things. Lame metaphor, but ultimately, focusing on what actions they are, and then actually focusing, literally paying attention and doing exerting the effort through those actions towards that goal, whether or not you actually achieved them. Like I said before, Michael had 4 goals, and he didn't tell me what they were, but he said there are 4 goals I didn't achieve. But does that mean he failed? No, probably. And I even talked about this with him. I said, if I had to guess, I would think that those 4 goals, either you decided it wasn't the right time for them, or those have now moved to your 2014 list, and you're that much further down the road on meeting them already.
Yeah.
So it fell into that camp. So
why productivity? I was talking to my wife, when we were getting ready to come down here and have this conversation with you. Well, there are 2 questions. Why bacon, which we'll get to in a second, but why productivity? Was there something in your past, maybe high school or college, and you made the conscious decision, I need to focus on being more productive, or was it an unmet niche that you thought you could help out? Do you have a...
Well, it's honestly both of those. It's definitely, I wasn't finding anyone out there that was really helping me out, that I could learn from, that I could learn to, find really good things to do with my life, focus in on them and achieve them. I was off track all the time. I was like, I feel like I'm not getting anything done. I feel like I don't even know what I want to do. I don't feel like I know how to do it when I want to do it. I don't feel like I have energy. I feel like I'm a bad father, bad husband, bad coworker, you feel like a failure all over the place. And it's like, how do I do that? Well, I guess I got to get it all together. And it's like, well, what does that mean? And that's actually something, that comes out of my high school. Like, I always got horrible grades, even though I have tested high on, being able to get good grade or smartness. Wow.
You're smart, but, you didn't apply yourself.
What's funny is I just said that so convoluted.
I are smart.
Me, I'm smart. Listen to me, I'm talk on podcast. But that's the thing is, like, what I realized was, here's where my weaknesses are. The productivity realm, even for a lot of the time, is either to help you make the best of leveraging your strengths, as well as covering for you over your weaknesses. And when you are doing both of those, then you start to get really good results. And so by testing either of those one way or the other, I was finding that I was becoming a better person. And that's really what my goal was.
I've found, and I've coached a couple people, when you have a goal and you have this destination, you can imagine it almost on a linear line, like if you can see it at the horizon. And whatever step you're about to take, you're either taking a step towards achieving that goal, that finish line, you're taking a step back, or maybe diverge, off to the left or right or something. And sometimes you need to, but by having the goal and that target in mind, you can at least see which direction you're going.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So what brought you to New Media Expo? Is this your favorite conference? Do you do others? I've seen you speaking and things like that, but what brings you here? Why do you come here?
I come here because this is where a lot of the like-minded people are in terms of internet business, content creation, passion for doing what you love, learning about technology, networking with those people, seeing awesome keynote speakers like we did earlier this morning. Just all of the above. Honestly, also because it was about a year and a half ago that I attended what was then known as Blog World and New Media Expo, and then at that event...
Is that the one in New York?
There they announced we're now dropping the blogging. It's just New Media Expo, which encompasses blogging, podcasting, web TV, content creation, business and social media, are now all part of New Media Expo.
Yeah.
And so that event was actually where Beyond the To-Do List was conceived, basically.
Very cool.
So,
yeah, my wife was telling me it's nice for her to see me in an environment where talking about doing something unique or special, online business and coaching, where people don't think I'm crazy when I talk about it.
Right.
And I'm really, I told you this is my first year, and I'm really enjoying it. Great meeting people. Like you in person, for example. And,
the percentage of people that are here right now that are newbies to New Media Expo, or New Media Expo bees, whatever. I think it's whatever. We'll coin a good term later.
NMX, hashtag NMX first timers. That's what we've been using.
There you go. That percentage is probably higher than the people who've been here before, I think, for the first time.
It looked like it when we all raised our hand.
Pool. Yeah, there's a huge pool. And that's what's great is, I was once that. A year and a half ago, that was me. And look what happened.
Now you're speaking on panels and taking Q&A.
And doing, and talking to you.
And you are the Erik Fisher, or Erik J. Fisher on Twitter, right?
Yes.
So what is your main productivity tip? If you had to boil it down to one thing, is it a checklist? Is it having those goals? Can you expand on that a little?
I think, you know what? I think the biggest thing for me, and I think this was the catalyst for really wanting to get involved with the whole productivity buzzword and realm and everything was, I had read David Allen's Getting Things Done book, and he does this thing called a mind dump, where you write everything down that's in your mind down. You write it all down. Get it out of your clear your mental RAM, so that you don't feel that sense of overwhelm. And then once you're doing that, you then have it down and out of your mind. Sorry, Mike, I hit you. And it's ultimately, once you've felt that release, you suddenly realize, okay, now I can step forward and move these things into certain categories. Like, if I'm thinking, my daughter's birthday's next week and I haven't gotten her gift yet, you don't have to have that on your mind right now while you're at a conference. But you do need to remember to set a reminder to do it as soon as you are able. And once you process that, it's like going into your inbox, processing it, and then seeing you have inbox 0. And then feeling the release of, I've cleared off my to-do list, so to speak.
So getting it all out on paper or Evernote or something.
So for example, Pat Flynn talks about getting one quick win. That's it. For me, in terms of productivity, if I was to tell people, here's how you get one quick productivity win, take 5-10 minutes, pad of paper, don't do it digitally. Sit down and force yourself to sit there with silence and get away from everybody, and just start to sit there and think, so what am I thinking about right now? And just start writing those things down. And you'd be surprised subconsciously how much you're thinking about without knowing it. Yeah. And once you start to get those things out, you will feel some kind of a psychological and even emotional reaction to that.
It makes it more real when you put ink to paper instead of just typing it in on your phone.
Right.
So, do you share that list with other people and let them critique it, or, I got it out of my head, but it's still staying in my pocket, nobody sees it?
I still keep it close first, because ultimately I want to put those, then I want to take the next step I mean, if you're looking for, okay, I did get the one quick win, here's a follow-up quick win. Put those things in places where you're going to then act on them, whether it's someday maybe list, whether it's that's next month, whether that's, oh, that's a really good idea. I want to interview that person for my podcast. Well, then put that in your podcast interview dream list, wish list, or whatever.
I made a spreadsheet.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So for you, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, dude, today, I'd like to interview Erik Fisher. Oh, well, I'm going to write that down. And then after you've finished the brain dump, then you go back to the pad and you go and take, my name and whoever else's names you had and move those off. And then you're like, okay, those are captured. They're in the place that I need to work with them. And it's now not on my mind and now not out of my mind undone.
You can kind of dismiss it knowing that you've kind of backed it up.
Right.
I was coaching a guy a couple of years ago, and we were talking about a business plan, but all of the things that he was thinking never left his head. And so I couldn't go in and critique those things because he never wrote them down. They were never, I think he wanted to have them complete. And I mean, the first draft is never the final draft, right? So
yeah.
We could never really talk about it, bounce ideas and things because it was all stuck in his head.
Well, and even in that example, for him, if he were to write all that stuff down, not all of it would be business stuff, but then he'd be able to pull those things that were business related and say, hey, here, Ellery, look at these. And then you guys have the discussion and decide, make a management decision based on, okay, that sounds like an idea that we can do this time. This one sounds like something that we need some more thought on and figure out how to do. And, so, I mean, it's contextual for sure.
What's some of the best advice you've got? Because you've had some really big names on Beyond the To-Do List.
Yeah.
What's some of the best advice maybe that would, you've spent a lot of time thinking about productivity. Mm-hmm. Have you gotten anything that's just completely brand new to you that you could pass on?
Yeah, one of the ones that really blew me away was Crystal Payne of Money Saving Mom. She said discipline begets discipline. And she's so right. Like, if you start to become disciplined in one small thing that you choose, that spills over into other things. Like, if you suddenly decide, small example, you decide that, I went to the dentist and I didn't have a great review, or did a great checkup. And so he says I need to be flossing more. And so you say, okay, I'm going to be disciplined and floss once a day. I don't know if that's the right amount of time or not. But so you start doing that, and suddenly that consistency of doing that one thing, disciplined, starts to go over into, even subconsciously, you'll find yourself maybe brushing one more time throughout the day because you're like, I feel good, I'm getting this done. Now let me add in. And I don't know, for me, sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's not. But you start to find that you're doing that. You're becoming more disciplined by becoming more disciplined in one thing.
Well, and I found that, it's January 4th or something. 5th, what is today? 3rd? It's 4th or 5th, whatever. 5th, okay. And, we're a lot of talk about New Year's resolutions and things. And a lot of what I found is if you have goals and you are committed, like you're saying, to those goals, you're keeping a promise to yourself. And when you make these resolutions and you break them, you're really doing more harm than you think, because you're like, well, I can't brush that extra time, or I can't floss. Am I really going to get up an hour early and go exercise? No. And then you just end up, it's kind of self-defeating.
Yeah.
So,
and those things are all even just like small changes and habits you want to do, which aren't necessarily like larger goals.
But they can have a pretty big
But they have an impact.
Yeah. It's like, I think it's Jeff Olson in The Slight Edge, he says, the things that are easy later are hard in the beginning, and the things that are hard later are easy in the beginning. If you eat a cheeseburger a day, or if you go walk a mile a day, it's those small things that build up.
That's
over
exactly
time.
it.
So I didn't mean it to segue into this. You're talking about cheeseburgers, but what's the deal with bacon?
The deal with bacon is, at some point, and I don't know how it happened, I just started just being creative and being funny with it. Just like, hey, I'm trying to think. Some people. I go up to the fast food restaurant, and they ask me if I want fries with that, and I always wish they'd ask me, "You want bacon with that?" And the answer is always yes. It's those. It was very much John Acuff inspired, where he throws out, like, he's totally business minded, and having your best life that you can oriented, but then he's totally on the other side. Part of his creativity is just having all these ideas, and some of that manifests itself in humor. So for me, the whole bacon thing, I mean, I love bacon, but I'm not going to suddenly confess, no, I don't really love it that much, guys. I really do. I had a bunch of it this morning.
I think I saw Twitter bacon on your bacon.
Yeah,
omelet.
it was a bacon covered bacon omelet. And
now, do you do turkey bacon or just?
I'm okay with that. Yeah, I figure if I can't have regular, at least I'll have something.
We discovered, I think it's on we don't do the South Beach diet, but their South Beach diet branded turkey bacon.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, it's very much a creative outlet. If there have been times where I'll stand there and I'm making bacon, and I'll write about 5-6 tweets down and save them for later, and just be like, those are good. Or I'll polish that one later, that kind of a thing. It's honestly a creative kind of almost writing and content creation exercise that some people would say, hey, don't tweet about bacon because you're wasting your creative energy on something that doesn't matter, instead of spending it sitting and thinking about how to write maybe a blog post about changing, how do you make impact change on somebody's life or something. And this is funny because I had a person comment, a friend of mine is a writer. She wrote this whole blog post about Christmas break and how she had this lull of time and she wasn't really doing a lot of writing. And then I wrote on her Facebook post when she posted it, I said, you talk about feeling like you're never going to be able to write again, and yet you just sat down and hammered this out. So then another friend comments and says, yeah, I hesitate to be creative sometimes because I feel like I'm going to use it all up. So then I write, creativity is more like a muscle you need to exercise so that it gets easier to use than it is a bank account that you only have a certain amount that you're able to spend out of it. So that's kind of what I'm doing with the whole bacon thing, honestly. Other than branding, because I've paid for a Super Bowl ad, basically. If bacon shows up on a Super Bowl ad, who are they going to think about when they see that bacon? The people that know me.
That's
Boom,
true.
It's me. I'm a Super Bowl ad, Yeah.
Well,
so unintentionally, it's been branding too.
Yeah, on your Facebook page, you said May 2014 be your bacon year ever. I mean, best.
Yes.
I just thought it was kind of funny. I was like, oh, when I first saw you, hadn't met you in person yet. I told my wife, hey, that's the bacon guy.
See?
She's like, well, why is he the bacon guy?
That's just how it happened. I honestly didn't make an intentional step. It just, a couple times something happened, and then it gradually grew out of control to a certain point.
And it goes back to one of the sessions that we heard yesterday. It's the stuff that makes you human. That's, I think the word was irrelevant to business, is at the same time the things that make you relevant to business.
Right, exactly.
It's the human-to-human connection, and it's our love of bacon, and I had some bacon this morning.
And Back to the Future and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
That's what's funny is, I've grown to love Pat Flynn even more, even just yesterday, because he was sitting there eating buffalo wings, and I was just like, I love this guy, because he loves buffalo wings as much as I do, too. So,
what's your favorite sauce? You got a garlic or a barbecue or something?
You know what? Have you ever heard of Buffalo Wild Wings?
Heck yeah.
I love their Asian Zing. I don't know why. It's my favorite that they put out there.
I'm a big fan of the medium. I've tried. I used to get I get 18 and 6 of one, 6 of another, and 6 of a third. Always come back to the medium.
I probably need to add to the mix of bacon probably Tabasco and Frank's Red Hot sauce. I love all that stuff too. So don't be surprised if you see that. Start seeing that now.
So Eric, what is on your to-do list for 2014? When we meet up at New Media Expo 15, between now and then, what are you gonna do?
My goal, and I talked to my wife about this, is that this year I'm going to work hard to, I've already got the podcast out there that's getting some sponsorships. I've got the book that's out there already. We're going to rebrand that book, come out with another one at least, and kind of build that sustainable passive income that's going to supplement hers. But before she can back out of doing as much work as she does right now, we're going to take that excess income and just, fix up our house a bit, different things like that. Really, get ourselves situated, the whole, get like we're not drowning in debt or anything. We have no credit card debt or anything like that. It's more, hey, let's pay down my school loans, let's fix up the house, and so we can move to a bigger, larger area, that kind of a thing. But we're going to supplement her income to the point where then she can move past that and get the quote unquote beyond the to-do list business like set up legally on paper that it exists. And but by no means am I quitting my day job. I love the people I work with. I love doing the work that I'm doing. And
do you do social media for a college?
Yeah, I do I'm the social media manager at Indiana Wesleyan University. So I love working for them, and I wouldn't trade that for anything at this point.
Awesome. Well, Eric, being on the Empowered podcast, you might have guessed we talk about the word empowered a little bit. What does the word empower mean to you?
I would say giving strength. It means that you are supporting and giving, a breakthrough of some sort to somebody that will enable them to move beyond where they're at right now.
How did you empower yourself to make the changes necessary? You talked about being at New Media Expo last year. There was a change there. How did you empower yourself to make those changes necessary to get you where you are today?
Some key things happened that just basically helped eliminate the word impossible from my mind. Once I knew that I was going to be able to get, for example, Michael Hyatt to be on my soon-to-be created show, I knew, well, if I can get him, I can get more people. So what do I want to talk about? What do I want to learn about personally? How do I want to move forward and make change for me and others?
So let me ask a side question to that. And you didn't know exactly what was possible. How did you say, maybe this is possible, I'm going to ask him anyway? Or, what was that hurdle like?
Yeah, so for example, I think the biggest one was, even after I had started, I thought, at some point, I'd like to talk to, for example, David Allen, the author of Getting Things Done. And so I thought, I'll just go ahead and get the ask out of the way, and then I figured it would take a while to get to that point. And what I didn't expect was his wife writes back within 24 hours and says, sure, he'd love to do it. Can you do it at this time on this day? And I said, heck yeah. And I didn't realize that it would be, I'm like, it's not, you don't get a yes every time when you ask people to do things or, try things or move forward, but you don't know until you do. Like, it's the whole, it doesn't hurt to ask thing. Mm-hmm. But the only reason it doesn't hurt to ask is if you have thicker skin. Like,
well, you
got to be able to, you got to be ready to get a no, and then ready to maybe even turn it around and turn that no into a yes down the road.
And you have to be, you have to realize, you saying no to me or someone, it doesn't hurt me.
Right.
Like I'm gonna pick. I mean, it might be like sad, but I'll pick myself up and I'll move on. It doesn't break a limb or send me to the hospital.
Yeah.
And I think so many people have this fear of rejection, going back to 16-year-old boys and we're worried about getting rejected.
Right.
A no does not kill you.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, it's definitely not a physical hurt. It could be a mental or an emotional one.
Ego, yeah.
It could be an ego thing for sure. But that's the thing is, once you know, like, oh, my worth is not in getting all the best podcast interviews ever.
Yeah.
That's just something I do. It's not who I am. Then you can move beyond that. So
as you're going through and you're looking to, like you mentioned, form the Beyond the To-Do List business and monetize more and let your wife have some more freedom, what types of resistance are you facing along this process? Because you're very much in the middle of it right now. What types of resistance are you facing?
Well, like I said, it comes back to focus. I have to be able to use the time as it's available. I have to be able to make the time become available, and also not neglect the responsibilities I already have, whether that's to my family right now to spend time with them and be around, whether that's to to my job, whether that's to myself to take time out to like not burn out. Like, there's all those different things you have to consider that in the meantime, there's only so much time, but I've got to figure out how to, and again, this is one of the things I work on. This is actually one of the things that people ask all the time is like, how do you balance all this stuff? Well, that's kind of the point. So that's the biggest challenge.
Listen to the podcast and I'll tell you.
Right, exactly. You want to know how? Check it out. It's about,
Episode 27
Yes.
or whatever.
I don't even know what that one is.
So in one of our very first conversations that we had over Twitter was managing your time versus managing yourself. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So can you recap that or maybe talk about that a little bit more when you say I need to manage my time better or I need to manage myself better and you're getting a lot done in 24 hours and some people aren't. What are your thoughts on that topic?
Well, that's the thing is like no matter what, we all have the same landscape or structure of time that we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. And we've already got it filled up a certain amount with commitments. And then we also have this time that maybe we've not committed, but we're maybe not utilizing to the best of our ability. Especially if we don't kind of capitalize and leverage that time the best way we can. So a lot of times when people talk about time management, that's what they really mean. And then there's other times where people talk about, self-management. And I think that kind of ties into time management in the way that you have to manage yourself and your choices of how you either deal with those commitments you've made and how to fit those into the time you have so that you can figure out having enough slots of time or enough commitments that are fulfilled that you have time you can use for these other... Because, for example, if I want to work on a new book, then I've got to make the time, quote unquote, for that. I can't create time, but I can move things around and restructure time, but only if I know what that landscape looks like and what my commitments are to be able to dedicate time and attention to that project.
And I've got a blog post coming out tomorrow, January the 6th, called, I think it was Forget Resolutions, Let's Pull the Weeds. And I got the idea from episode 14 when I was interviewing Scott Fay. His book is Discover Your Sweet Spot. And one of the things, he's the landscaper. And when you're talking about goals and all the things that you want to get done, you've got, instead of adding more to your plate, I want to go to the gym, I want to write 500 words a day, or I want to go to a lot of the productivity things that I've discovered for myself is you got to eliminate stuff. You've got to pull the weeds that are choking the life out of the things that you really want to do. And it's not just about addition, it's largely, a big part of it is about subtracting the things that are just wasting time.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying is basically you've got to learn to say no to new incoming things so that they don't clog the time slots where you would work on the stuff that you want to say yes to.
Yeah. Well, I know you know Dan and Vanessa, and when I interviewed them, I shared this quote with them, and I don't remember who, you actually might know who said it if you've heard it, but the quote is, we have to say no to the good things in life so that we can say yes to the great things in life.
I think they both said it. Yeah, I've interviewed them, and they're great. They're awesome. They're here, actually, and I love them. I love their approach to lifestyle design, and just you have to, that's my whole point is focus is, if I don't focus, if I don't pick and choose my actions and my time, then I'm always going to be stuck with just good or less and never get to the great.
So that brings me to a good question. What are you doing today that'll keep you moving forward to your goals tomorrow?
Do you mean literally at the conference, or do you mean in general?
Let's do both, because when I was releasing the episodes with Amy Porterfield and Cliff, I talked about meeting them at Platform. Mm-hmm. So talk about what you're doing here at conferences, because I think there's so much value. Yeah. So here at conferences, what are you doing today that'll move you forward? And then when you go back to back home, some of the things that our listeners and me can do.
Well, I think one of the things that you definitely have to do is, if you go to a conference, don't get stuck, hung up on the schedule.
We're blowing something off right now to hang out.
Right, exactly. That's the point. It's I was going to go to a session, and then you asked me to do this, and honestly I realized, you know what? We've been wanting to do this for a while, so let's do this.
Thank you.
But that's the thing, is you got to be flexible. You got to be up for hanging out with people, and especially because a lot of us will spend time digitally with people, but then we don't see them face to face all but maybe once a year or if we're lucky, a couple more times than that. And so that's what I've really been trying to do. I had a hit list of people I wanted to hang out with here that I knew were going to be here, and so I've been doing that. And
so keeping a list of, okay, that's a good idea.
That's really what I've done here is, and if there's a topic, is there a piece of education you need to get, then go to that session, but make sure you've got that one blocked off on your list. And say, if somebody's like, hey, you want to do this? I'm like, no, I'm actually going to go to this. Do you want to go with me? But
have your must-haves.
I'll hang out with you afterwards. Yeah, like that. Okay. So I've got my must-haves for today and tomorrow. Yesterday was a little different with speaking. So
yeah. So what about when you go back home?
In general, well, when I get home, I'm going to probably unplug for a little bit just to get back into the rhythm. It's funny, we just came off Christmas break, so I'm not even fully back at work, and my daughter's not even fully back at school yet. I'm going to kind of set up the routine. I'm going to reset up what my routine is, and that'll probably be something along the lines of getting up a little bit earlier and working on stuff in the morning, and then, just basically, it's a new season, January through, say, about March, April. In fact, actually, I'm going to be I'm moderating a panel at Social Media Marketing World the last week of March.
Where's that at?
San Diego.
I heard, okay.
And the panel's John Lee Dumas, Cliff Ravenscraft, and Ray Edwards. So that's going to be fun, and I'm looking forward to that. So that's that next big thing after this one.
Okay.
So I'll be preparing for that, obviously.
So talking about, pulling the weeds and saying no to the things, as you've started the podcast, you've written at least one book and have some more on the horizon. What are some of the things that you have stopped doing along this journey towards success?
You know what? I think what I've stopped doing is sit, and again, this is a discipline thing, wasting time online, like just surfing.
Like web or social media or both?
Yeah, both. Just getting lost in it and taking too much time away from actually getting work done to, instead of being busy, being productive is what I've really decided to do. And honestly, there's the focus thing. I'll tell you, there's some software that online that's called focusatwill.com.
Did Michael Hyatt talk about that?
He's talked about it, yeah. I didn't know he knew about it until I tweeted him, and he's like, yeah, somebody told me about that. And it's this great software where it kind of mimics, it tricks your brain, basically, from the flight or flight mechanism.
Okay.
So you're listening to this music that you're unfamiliar with. It's kind of ambient or like techno beats or classical. They have all these different versions. And I thought, really? Come on. How's that going to help me? You put headphones on or in or whatever, and you play, and you set a timer for like 60 minutes, and it will stimulate and alleviate and, again, stimulate like your brainwaves to the point where you suddenly find, oh, you know what? I don't need to get up and be distracted. I can sit here and I can delete, process emails, do writing, different things. It's an amazing software.
And that's one where that's the music. I've been to that site.
It's
I can't
music,
remember.
yeah.
Okay. What do you do to unwind and relax?
I watch TV with my wife in the evenings.
Watch?
I watch. Right now we've started rewatching the BBC version of Sherlock.
Okay.
Because that's coming out again, the new season. Yes, I do watch Downton Abbey. Sorry. It's not unmanly. There's some actually pretty good.
It's well written.
It's well written. It's
I've watched a couple.
highly produced. Well, what else do I watch? I watched the CW show Arrow, which is about Green Arrow. It's pretty good. The first season's on Netflix. You can check that out. I'm trying to think of what else that I really really like. We watch a lot of comedies like Modern Family and
it's a good one.
Parks and Recreation. The new Andy Samberg cop show is pretty fun. Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Okay.
That's it. Honestly, I love it. It's just so random and funny. So, yeah, I go for a lot of comedy stuff mainly.
Okay, very cool. What was the last movie you saw?
Let's see. Last movie I saw was I rewatched the first Hobbit movie because I hadn't seen yet the second one, and I wanted to remember what happened before I go see it. So
What do you think of those?
I'll see that soon. Dude, you don't even want to ask me about that. Like, that's just, I could go off. Like, I'm a Tolkien fan, and I'm kind of torn between how not like the book it is, and then how they kind of took stuff that still was written by him and incorporated it. And anyway, I'll have to see how it all ends up after all 3 movies are out, but right now I'm still kind of conflicted.
I found it to be so different from The Lord of the Rings. I know they're separate books and whatever, but I felt like The Lord of the Rings was targeted towards kind of not an adult audience, but a more mature audience. And Hobbit's like 8-year-old, or it's just goofy. I'm not a huge fan.
It is, and yet then you've got this Lord of the Rings like goriness added into it, so it doesn't help either side. Like, it's too lighthearted for adults and too gory for young kids. So you meet in the middle and kind of lose the impact on both, I think.
Yeah, we saw it. Not too impressed.
I hear the second one's better. I'll see for myself.
There you go. Let me know what you think.
I will.
So, Eric, my final question for you is, what is one tip or piece of advice that you can give people like me and maybe our listeners who are just starting out?
I would say start. I think that's the thing, is like, if you don't start to practice, then you don't have anything to go on in terms of how did that work or didn't it work, to figure out what it is you want to do, or even if it is what you want, even if you know what it is you want to do, figuring out how to do it. So we get lost in the hesitation so much that we then don't just do stuff, and then you'll know and become closer to it. I mean, it's the whole Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hour thing. Get some hours down. Do it. That's the only way you're going to get anywhere.
That's really good advice. I think in that same book he talks about
the hours
learning.
Are transferable, is what I'm saying. The hours, like, here's the thing, he doesn't say you have to have 10,000 hours where every single one of those hours was you being perfect at the thing. No, it's that amount of time put in to master something. And you can squander those hours, so to speak, on something that may seem unrelated to what the end goal is and the end mastery thing, but that time put in, it's why, like, for example, when my podcast came out, that was not my first show, which is why it's been so successful, was because I put in so many hours from 2007 through to 2012 when I launched it. That's 5 years of time. I don't know how. And I was talking to Cliff. He was like, you should see if you can figure out how many hours you've already put in on podcasting. And I'm like, you're right. I've probably put in a couple of thousand already. Yeah. So it shows. I think that's not me being boastful. It's me saying, like, that's confidence in the fact that I feel like I've learned from, like, the beginning to now, and I can only imagine, like, moving forward with even more practice. Yeah. So start putting those hours in towards whatever, and you may switch gears or change directions or whatever. Those hours are still with you.
Yeah. Awesome. If someone wanted to say thanks for being on the Empowered Podcast, where can I send them, or where can they connect with you?
Sure. Yeah, well, the show's at beyondthetodolist.com, and you can check me out at twitter.com/Eric with a K, the letter J, Fisher.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes. Thanks for hanging out with me today.
You're welcome. It's been great.
Eric, thank you again for taking the time to be on the Empowered Podcast. It was great meeting you and everyone that I met at New Media Expo. Guys, I can't tell you enough how important it is to go to conferences that are in your industry, whether you're looking to grow as a leader or be a better nurse or a better teacher. The content at these things is really good, but the meetups and the people that you meet just really enrich the experience. To see a picture of Erik and I at the podcast pavilion at New Media Expo, head on over to theempoweredpodcast.com and click on the link with Erik Fisher and I, or you can go to empoweringthe80%.com/EP16 as Empowered Podcast and the number 16. And there's a picture there as well as all of the show notes for this episode. Again, if you are interested in taking your life and your career to the next level, go to empoweringthe80%.com/coach and sign up there, and you and I will get on the phone and figure out what we both need to do to get you to where you want to be. Now, here's a taste of what's coming up on the next episode of the Empowered Podcast.
Empower means connecting with what is the authentic potential within you and owning that you can take that potential and do something with it. So it's owning what's possible.
Are you still there? If you are, I wanted to tell you, you're awesome.